The Navy SEALs, some of the toughest guys on the planet, clench their fists as they hear Jessica Buchanan's desperate pleas for her life. Jessica, an American teacher on a mission to clear landmines in Somalia, has been kidnapped by ruthless pirates. Now she's sick, starving, and alone in the desert, completely at the mercy of her captors.
I'm here alive. Well.
SEAL Team 6, the best of the best, knew they had to rescue her. But things weren't going their way. First, gale force winds meant they had to jump from their aircraft in conditions twice as dangerous as usual. Then the solar storm threatened to block their radio communications for hours. The SEALs would have to show just how skilled they were before they even touched the ground. Normally, a mission like this would be delayed, but Jessica didn't have time to wait. She needed help now. So the SEALs put on their parachutes, checked their oxygen tanks, and jumped into the dark unknown. As they fell through the sky, their hearts raced. They had trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare them for the real thing. They had to land perfectly, stay silent, and move quickly to find Jessica. Touching down in the desert, the SEALs moved like shadows. They knew they had to be fast and quiet. Every second counted. They used their training to navigate through the tough terrain, keeping their eyes and ears open for any sign of danger. Finally, they reached the camp where Jessica was held. She was weak and scared, but when she saw the SEALs, hope filled her eyes. The SEALs moved swiftly, taking out the guards without a sound. They reached Jessica and reassured her, "We're here to take you home." They moved quickly, getting Jessica to safety. The journey back was tense, but the SEALs stayed calm and focused. They knew they had to get her out of there fast. As they reached their extraction point, they signaled for the rescue chopper. The sound of the helicopter's blades was like music to their ears. They loaded Jessica on board and lifted off, leaving the danger behind. Jessica was finally safe. The SEALs had done it. They had faced impossible odds and won. Their bravery and skill had saved Jessica's life. It was a mission they would never forget, and neither would she. This daring rescue showed the world what the SEALs are made of. It's a story of courage, teamwork, and the unbreakable human spirit. Let's dive in to see how Jessica was kidnapped and how she was rescued. Kidnapping. Jessica Buchanan, a 32-year-old American, was living in one of the safer parts of Somalia with her husband. She worked for a large aid organization, teaching children about the dangers of landmines alongside her Danish colleague Paul Thisted. Their work was vital in a country riddled with anti-personnel mines, remnants of past conflicts. On their next assignment, Jessica had to travel dangerously close to the Green Line, an invisible boundary marking the areas controlled by Islamist militants. The Horn of Africa was already a tense place, with bomb attacks and skirmishes between rival tribes happening regularly. But Jessica wasn't one to hide behind walls. She was there to make a difference. At first, everything seemed fine. But on October 25, 2011, the day of their return trip, everything changed. The first red flag for Jessica was their driver. Instead of their usual chauffeur, a stranger was behind the wheel of the Land Cruiser meant to take them to the airport. Paul, however, seemed unfazed and got into the passenger seat, so Jessica followed suit. Just 10 minutes into their journey, disaster struck. A massive vehicle forced their convoy to a sudden stop. Around 30 men with AK-47s surrounded them, banging on the windows and shouting orders in a language Jessica couldn't understand. Before she could process what was happening, one of the pirates pointed a gun at her head, and her security advisor was violently dragged out of the vehicle. A heavily armed man took the empty seat and barked orders to the driver, who promptly showed his true allegiance by speeding away. The convoy made several stops, switching vehicles amid loud shouts from the pirates, who seemed well organized despite being high on cat, a stimulant plant common in Africa. At one point, the pirates forced Jessica and Paul to prepare for their own execution, only to cancel it at the last moment. It was a cruel game to them, a way to mock the helplessness of their Western captives. The pirates didn't care about the lives of the aid workers, but they knew they needed them alive to demand a high ransom. Back in the West, Washington was already on high alert. Jessica's aid organization had informed the American embassy in Nairobi right after the attack, which then notified the FBI. Calls were made to family members to reassure them and prevent any rash actions. High-ranking officials briefed President Barack Obama, and Jessica's abduction quickly became a top priority at the White House. Paul Thisted later recounted that being kidnapped with an American was the best thing that could have happened to him. Both the hostages and their captors were about to find out just how much it meant to have an American involved. 90 days of fear. Almost 3 months later, Jessica was still in captivity. The good news? She was still alive. The bad news? Despite slow negotiations, no agreement could be reached for her ransom. The pirates had even refused $1.5 million, a sum that could have set each of them up for at least 30 years. Every day, Jessica battled hunger, heat, and the constant fear of harm from her kidnappers. As if that wasn't enough, a urinary tract infection had spread through her body, posing a fatal threat. In a final video message to Western authorities, she and Paul begged for their lives and a quick payment of the ransom. Without it, Jessica feared she would either die from her infection or fall victim to the whims of pirates high on cat. That night, under a brightly lit starry sky, Jessica prayed for a miracle. Little did she know her prayers were being answered. 10,000 miles away, 24 cell phones suddenly rang. The men answering these calls were no ordinary folks. They had long beards and were covered in tattoos. Some had the build of a bear, while others looked like hardened marathon runners. But they all shared one thing in common: an aura of absolute calm, self-confidence, and professionalism. These men were the legendary SEAL Team 6, and they had just been alerted. Jessica's situation was dire. Her health was deteriorating rapidly, and she was losing hope. She didn't know if she would ever see her family again. Each day was a struggle to survive, and each night she lay awake, wondering if it would be her last. As the SEALs prepared to deploy, they remained calm and focused. Each member of the team was a master of their craft, and they knew that their training and teamwork would be crucial in the mission ahead. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, driven by their unwavering commitment to bring Jessica home. Rescue mission. Over the next few weeks, SEAL Team 6 of Blue Squadron trained day and night to rescue Jessica. Her pleading voice from the video message was always in the back of their minds. They were especially motivated. On January 25, 2012, the time had finally come. President Obama himself had given the green light for the hostage rescue. 24 of the best warriors the U.S. had to offer would risk their lives to try to free both hostages unharmed. Their plan was to parachute over Somalia and then approach the pirate camp on foot to avoid alerting the enemy with loud noises. At the U.S. operations base in Djibouti, around 500 miles from Jessica's location, everything military-related that could be useful was gathered. By this point, the total operation cost was already well over $100 million, showing just how much America was willing to spend to save one citizen. With final preparations completed, the SEALs boarded their C-130 transport aircraft and took off from Mogadishu. As it turned out, the kidnappers wanted to change their position that very night but had eaten spoiled meat and decided to stay put. Meanwhile, a violent solar storm erupted, hitting Earth's magnetic field so hard that radio communications with other support units were disrupted. This meant no quick reaction force, no situation reports, and no close air support. To top it off, wind speeds were more than double what would usually cancel a mission. But the rescue of Jessica Buchanan was not a regular mission, and every one of the 24 men on board was willing to take that extra risk. After about 3 hours in the air, the C-130 reached their drop point. The SEALs rose from their seats, hooked up their oxygen tanks, and then jumped from more than 20,000 feet into the 40-knot wind. In just a few seconds of free fall, they reached speeds of 120 miles per hour, a velocity usually achieved by competitive athletes in optimal conditions. Holding security for each other, the SEALs put on their combat gear and tightened their boots. From then on, they had to walk several miles through the more than 100-degree hot Somali night. After nearly an hour of silent marching, they were now only 500 meters from the pirate camp. Along the way, they had to change direction several times to keep the wind in their faces, eliminating any chance of being detected early. A hostage rescue differs from a normal combat mission in that the hostage's life is even more important than fighting the enemy. The SEALs would literally run through machine gun fire if it meant they could save Jessica. Their goal was to remain undetected for as long as possible, then speed was of the essence. As the 24 warriors began to move again, the longest hour of their lives was about to begin. They were within earshot of the pirates, and only the night's darkness kept them hidden from the guards. One foot was silently placed forward. The weight shifted, and only then did the next foot move. An experienced SEAL named Justin Sheffield led the group. At his hand signal, the operators spread out far to the left and right to bring as many rifles forward as possible without crossing each other's fields of fire. The SEALs quickened their pace, still perfectly steady. Sheffield aimed his laser at one of the Somali guards, and without needing to say anything, his comrades did the same. The infrared beams were invisible to the pirates without night vision, but they sensed something moving in the darkness. With a loud clack, they racked their heavy PKM machine guns and got into position, pointing their weapons roughly in the direction of the sounds they heard. The SEALs increased their pace again, now less concerned with noise, discipline, and more focused on closing the distance to the hostages before all hell broke loose. Firefight. With a deafening roar, the pirates' machine guns erupted, unleashing deadly 7.62mm rounds at the SEALs. The crack of AK-47 assault rifles followed, adding to the chaos. The SEAL snipers, positioned and poised for this exact moment, sprang into action. With precise surgical accuracy, they silenced the enemy machine guns and quickly targeted new threats. Amidst the chaos, the Navy SEALs returned fire while pushing forward, determined to find Jessica. Their countless hours on the shooting range, practicing under intense stress, now paid off. They spotted two pirates with AK standing ominously over Jessica, who was crouched helplessly on the ground. Sheffield and another SEAL broke away from their formation and with deadly precision ensured those pirates would never kidnap anyone again. Seeing Jessica's terrified face, Sheffield made a split-second decision. He dove on top of her, using his body as a shield in the ongoing firefight. More SEALs quickly joined, forming a protective barrier around Jessica. As the gunfire subsided and all 9 pirates were neutralized, Sheffield lifted Jessica onto his shoulders and sprinted away from the danger. The other SEALs formed a protective human shield around them, ready to fend off any additional threats. After running as far as he could in the aftermath of the intense battle, Sheffield carefully set Jessica down. Pararescue jumpers from the U.S. Air Force, a specialized rescue force, attended to her. Still in shock, Jessica anxiously asked if there was a chance more attackers might come. Sheffield, his voice steady and reassuring, responded, "We are SEAL Team 6. We will kill anyone who tries to harm you now." His words, though cold, provided the reassurance she desperately needed. As the SEALs blew up the pirates' arms depot, they made their way to the landing zone for the extraction helicopter. Their mission far from over, but their spirits high. Jessica and Paul were safe, thanks to the bravery and dedication of SEAL Team 6. If you want to support our work, feel free to leave a like and share your thoughts on this incredible hostage rescue. Do you think the U.S. government should have simply paid the ransom for a peaceful release, or was the deployment of SEAL Team 6 the right call, in line with the motto, "We do not negotiate with terrorists"? We're eager to hear your opinions on this gripping topic. See you next time, and thank you once again for your support.